about it.
So what do you think? How will this now play out in the next few months? Will we see then a formal armistice or some kind of negotiations, or what is your expectation for the near future? What will happen?
Well, I can't put I'm hesitant to put a timeline on it because the Russians don't put a timeline on it. They're objective driven. The war will end when Russia wins the war. That's it. And that's the difference, you see, because in Germany, everybody's going, right, can we be done by this point? If we give them assistance here, we can be finished by the spring. Do we have to fund it to the Russians are saying that people go, well, Russia, when's the war going to end? When we win. When's that going to be? When we win. But I mean, give me when we win. That's it. That's the difference. The Russians will win because that's their objective. Everybody else is putting artificial calendar-driven things. But the fact of the matter is, the war ends when two things happen. One, the Ukrainian army no longer is capable of fighting in a coherent fashion, and they're rapidly approaching that point right now. Their last strategic reserves have been expended. They're getting 31 M1 Abrams tanks. I think the Russians are ready to surrender right now. The fact is, I'm pretty sure Vladimir Putin just called up Joe Biden and said, 31 M1 tanks, when can we sit down and negotiate the terms of our surrender? I'm ready to give up today because it's 31 M1 tanks. You've never heard of the M1 before. It's a miracle weapon. No, it's not. It's been around forever. Old tank. It's not very good. The armor that they put on it isn't even good armor. It's the butter armor. The Russian munitions are going to cut through it like odd knife through butter and kill everybody inside, which again is something that everybody tends to forget. That when these weapons fail in combat, it usually results in dead Ukrainian soldiers. But the Russians aren't worried about any of this. The Russians are going to defeat the Ukrainian army strategically. That point is coming, but the war won't end until there's a political resolution. The Russians have made it clear that Ukraine will never join NATO. So as long as there's a Ukrainian government that says we are going to join NATO, that means that the war ends when that Ukrainian government is kaput, finished, gone. We're getting close to that today. The Zelensky experiment is over. Poland has said no. I think even the Germans are getting tired of Zelensky. His wife, I don't know if you saw the 60 Minutes interview that she gave just recently, an exhausted woman who talked about the political future, saying she's not certain that the Ukrainian people will continue to want Zelensky to be their president in upcoming elections. Now, I've seen a lot of politicians' spouses when they're interviewed on the verge of an election campaign. They're all upbeat. My husband's going to win. He's great. The people love him. She was all defeated. The Zelensky era is over. He's doomed. He's collapsing as we speak. And when he collapses, that which replaces him will probably be inclined to bring an end to this war. This war, if there is a negotiation, the negotiation will resemble what occurred on the deck of the USS Missouri, a battleship in Tokyo Bay on September 2nd, 1945, where the Japanese were brought in, stood before a table, and compelled to sign surrender document without conditions. It was unconditional surrender. And that's the future for Ukraine. At some point in time, a Ukrainian official will appear before a Russian delegation, documents will be on the table, and they'll be handed a pen. They'll be told to sign, document, it's over. And they will have no say in what's in that document because they have been defeated strategically. That's the reality. The day and age of negotiation has passed. I remind your audience that in March of 2022, the Russians had engaged in extensive negotiation with the Ukrainians, and they had a peace plan in hand, initialed by everybody. And it was ready to be finalized on 1 April in Istanbul. And it was NATO through that same British prime minister who wrote that wonderful article talking about the need to continue. Yes, Boris Johnson. He's the guy that flew in and said, no, don't do peace because NATO's behind you. We're going to back you. How does that work out? The day of negotiations over. The Russians will not negotiate. There will be no ceasefire. There will be no frozen conflict. The war is over. Europe, you lost. Get used to it.